Mr Chairman, I'd like to reintroduce Michael Sanderson.
Hello again.
G'day, Board. Now for something completely different. 2.5 hours in. It's incredible. This goes to branch closures. I make the statement it's not possible to digitise a personal interaction, reflect it in a file, or do it remotely. Since the peak in 1975, Westpac has slashed 75% of non-metropolitan branches, leaving it with 194 from its original 777. Since the start of 2021, Westpac has closed 47 Westpac branches. These closures, from these closures, Westpac has left 13 towns with no banking services. They are Yankanilla, Mannum, Tailem Bend, Kapunda, Peterborough, Hamilton Island, Jabiru, Terrigal, Lura, Tom Price, Wogan Hills, Coopapedy and Karnama. My question is, do you claim that the branches Westpac has closed are unprofitable? If so, will you submit this claim to an independent audit? And how do Westpac branch closures comply with the mandatory and contractual warranty of the Banking Code of Practice that states, "We are committed to providing banking services which are inclusive of all people, including A, older people, B, people with disability, C, Indigenous Australians, including in remote locations, and D, people with limited English"?
Thank you. That's a question for the management. Thank you.
Yep. So, thank you, Mr Sanders. So, in relation to branches, yes, the numbers are going down, and as I said in my remarks up front, 7% of transactions are now handled through branches, and our approach there is that where we are closing a branch, there will be an Australia Post operation there, and so we will be working with Australia Post to lift its service in relation to those, and we will also be introducing more virtual capabilities. So we've got the digital capability on the phone and virtual bankers. In relation to your specific question on why, because we're seeing the foot traffic go down, we're also seeing the ability to staff them be difficult. A couple of the other things that we're doing is co-locating branches, so multiple brands being under one roof, and we're working towards Westpac branches being able to serve all brands as well.
Just a question that relates to that. Between 1991 and 1996, the Keating Labor government sold out working Australians by fully privatising the Commonwealth Bank. My questions are, would Westpac support the re-establishment of a publicly owned bank to offer all Australians bread and butter banking, irrespective of location and circumstances? And would Westpac support the reintroduction of modern Glass-Steagall regulation that separates bread and butter banking from risky speculative banking?
I'll answer the second one, that we are not in the Glass-Steagall issue, because on securities materially, we do issue debt securities, but we're not in equities, and we're not a big investment bank. And I think that's the case for all the Australian banks. So I don't think a Glass-Steagall rule will achieve very much in Australia because the banks tend to be commercial banks. But Peter?
On the other point about a government bank, I think that's for the government. Well, we support it. We're doing everything we can to provide services around Australia. For us, what's happening is the economy is becoming digital and things are moving online, and we need to help position customers, not only for banking services, but all services to be online.
It was interesting, in New Zealand, Kiwi Bank was formed. If to your other point,
Yes.
So it's an interesting idea.
Yes, it's working in New Zealand. I lived there for 10 years. But to my original point, if you withdraw a service and force people to go digital, they're going to have to go there. It doesn't answer the question of removing a physical bank. I look at my personal situation. I banked with NAB. I've never banked with Westpac, but I put my success down to my personal interaction with my banking manager. Without that, what happens is you deal with somebody remotely. Another situation was with the Bank of Queensland. I ended up dealing with a wet behind the ears bank Johnny, didn't know who I was, didn't know my business, never visited me, and he was making fundamental decisions from a distance. Now, on one hand, I've got NAB on one business supporting me because he knew me. On the other hand, I've got the Bank of Queensland with the wet behind the ears bank Johnny that doesn't know me, that eventually sold my farm, despite never missing a payment. So, as I said, if you withdraw a service, people are forced to go down that track. You're suggesting that they're doing it voluntarily.
No, I'm suggesting that we're replacing the service with Australia Post when we talk about branches, and in relation to business bankers, a lot of our bankers are based in regional areas, and they get in the road, they get in their cars, and they get out and meet customers. So it's it's not a one-size-fits-all approach to service, but a lot of the transaction services are going online in the sense of moving money, paying money, receiving money, and changing details is actually being happening through the app now. That's where we see people going.
So where does a business in Cooper Pedy bank?
In Australia Post. There's still an Australia Post provides a service there to, I think it's 80 available banks.
So you wouldn't be impartial to Australia Post becoming a similar model to Kiwiland?
Well, that's their choice. They may or may not choose to go there, but we have an important 10-year relationship with Australia Post, which provides access to 3,500 points of presence for Australia.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. I've got another question. I've got a couple of other questions, but that's for later.
Okay, new competition's healthy. Okay.